Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Amu Menon, MBA student, David A. Thomas, Dean of the McDonough School of Business, John J. DeGioia, President of Georgetown University, Brian Moynihan, CEO of Bank of America, and Bono.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you all for being here tonight. Sorry if I seem a little nervous, but this is my first time opening for U2, so sorry. My name is Amu Menon, and I am a second-year MBA candidate at the McDonough School of Business here at Georgetown University. Thank you. Thank you. A few years ago, when I was going through the process of figuring out what business school I want to go to, it was Georgetown's continued commitment to social enterprises that really drew me to this MBA program. And I am so proud to now be a member of the Global Social Enterprise Initiative here at Georgetown. Being part of this initiative has really opened up opportunities for me to not only interact with business leaders, but also learn from them and learn how to do good business, do them well, and do it in a socially conscious manner. And we're lucky to have many of these industry leaders with us tonight, including two rock stars in this area, Bono and Mr. Moynihan. Now, we also have a number of other student leaders from the Global Social Enterprise Initiative sitting right in the front here. And I'd like to thank our founding partner, Bank of America, for co-hosting tonight on behalf of all of us. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the other partners and leaders in this room tonight. You have all enriched our MBA experience, and especially Professor Novelli and Ladam Mantegi, who is the Executive Director of Global Social Enterprise Initiative. Personally, I plan to take much of what I learned from being an active member of the Global Social Enterprise Initiative and from leaders like Bono and carry it with me throughout my career. They are teaching us important lessons on how to create both economic and social value while doing business. So now I'd like to take a moment and introduce our next speaker, Georgetown's very own President DeGioia. The idea of creating strong leaders who contribute both to business and to society is something that he has been committed to since becoming president in 2001. It stems directly from our Jesuit tradition to be of service to others. Having been on the hilltop in various capacities for 37 years, President DeGioia is dedicated to creating leaders with a commitment to excellence in all spheres of our lives. And as students, we thank him for that. Now, if you can help me welcome President DeGioia.
Well, thank you very much, Amu, for that kind introduction and for your leadership at our Global Social Enterprise Initiative, GSEI. We're proud of the work in which you are engaged alongside many of the students and partners in this room. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to Georgetown University and to Gaston Hall for this special evening with Bono. We're deeply appreciative of Bono for coming to the Hilltop and for sharing with us his experience, his insights, and his innovative leadership in social enterprise. I'd also like to thank Bank of America for hosting this event in partnership with our Global Social Enterprise Initiative at our McDonough School of Business. The bank has been a supporter and collaborative partner of GSEI since becoming a founding partner in 2011. The goal of the initiative is to prepare current and future leaders to create both social and economic value in their endeavors. With our partners, we are working across all sectors, academic, corporate, government, and nonprofit, to accomplish this goal. I also want to thank The Atlantic for serving as our media partner tonight. And we're honored to have with us United States Senator Patrick Leahy, the Minority Leader of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, and the Irish Ambassador to the United States, Michael Collins. We are truly privileged to have the opportunity to come together for events like this. As a community, Georgetown is committed to the creation and dissemination of knowledge that contributes to human flourishing and the common good. You may see written on the wall behind me the Latin phrase, ad maiorem Dei gloriam inque hominum salutem. The first half of this phrase, ad maiorem Dei gloriam, is the motto of the Jesuits. It means for the greater glory of God. As a university in the Jesuit tradition, all of our work is for God's greater glory. And because of our tradition, we are also committed to work for the betterment of humankind. And that is the second half of the phrase, inque hominum salutem. Today's topic, social enterprise, is an expression of this mission, of our commitment to endeavors for the betterment of humankind. There are a number of individuals whose hard work and dedication made tonight possible, and we're grateful for each for your contributions. First, to David Thomas, the Dean of our McDonough School of Business, for his extraordinary leadership and his support of initiatives like GSEI. I'd also like to thank Bill Novelli, a distinguished professor of the practice at our business school and the founder of GSEI. Bill's deep commitment to social enterprise, corporate responsibility, and social change has enriched our community here at Georgetown, as well as the lives of countless individuals outside our gates. Thank you also to LaDon Montegui, the Executive Director of GSEI, for her leadership and her hard work leading up to tonight. And I also wish to express my appreciation for Ann Finucane, the Global Strategy and Marketing Officer at Bank of America. Two of Ann's sons graduated from Georgetown, and one is a current student here, and Ann was instrumental in making tonight possible. And finally, thank you to Brian Moynihan, CEO of Bank of America, for bringing us together tonight. Under Brian's leadership, Bank of America serves consumers, small and large businesses, and institutional investors. It is one of the world's largest financial institutions and is a leader in wealth management, corporate investment banking, and trading. Under Brian's tenure as CEO, Bank of America is also working to expand its commitment to community development and philanthropy, and this includes a 10-year, $1.5 trillion goal in community lending and investing. It's truly a privilege and a pleasure to welcome you all and now to introduce to you the CEO of Bank of America, Brian Moynihan.
Thank you, President DeGioia. It has been great to be here. I was at a different Jesuit institution on a hill on Saturday night watching my place I went to law school beat BC, so at least we may have done you some favors here at Georgetown by doing that. I want to thank the entire Georgetown community for hosting us tonight. I know that when the announcements of the various people on the stage came out that those were for the four of us and not for our Mr. Bono, but and this is one of the, I understand this is an event which has been well sought after by all the students here, and we're very proud to have Bono come and talk to you about the good works he does. So let me just spend a couple minutes and then we'll introduce Bono and get going. Several months ago, he made a speech here in Washington where he talked about the power of partnership and something that he's followed very carefully. The power of partnership to end hunger in Africa, the power of partnership that transcends traditional lines, the power of partnership that brings everyone together to achieve a common goal. And that's the reason why we're here tonight. It's the power of partnership. It's a partnership that we have with the Global Social Enterprise Initiative. It's an initiative that we have built by providing funding, but you have built through all your hard work, that comes across business, government, and other disciplines so we can collaborate to make a difference. I had the pleasure of spending an hour with some of the students in the initiative today, and after they grilled me for 45 minutes of questions about do we do the right thing and how do we do it, I feel energized to go back and realize that they do recognize the good works that we do and the talent that's in the school and in that room, and is a great statement to the work that the initiative does. This initiative was built on an idea that business success and global good are not mutually exclusive goals. In fact, they are common goals. It's an initiative that will train future leaders, whether you're a banker or a musician, to think outside the borders of your day job and try to do more. To think outside yourself and find the issues and the needs where you can make a difference. We at Bank of America, and on behalf of our 270,000 teammates, we're very proud to support the Global Social Enterprise Initiative here at Georgetown because it aligns with what we do as a company. We believe it is good business and the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do to make a social responsibility a cornerstone of what we do. We believe in the power of connections in our company, connections that bring together resources, diverse ideas, and dedicate teams to take on and drive change and address the challenges in the world. We've done that with our $50 billion environmental initiative. We've done that through the $200 million in philanthropy that we do on an annual basis to reduce hunger, create jobs, and strengthen education across the world. Whether it's in financial services that we provide for our customers that we think do great things for them and help them live their lives. Whether it's what we do for our veterans that you know here on Veterans Day, including our recently announced initiative with the George W. Bush Institute to help workforce development for veterans. Whether it's through something that I'm most proud of, the 1.5 million volunteer hours our teammates put in every year to help their communities. All these things show that our company strives to do what it says, to do the right thing. The global social enterprise seeks to tap into something that is innate to all of us. As leaders, we just don't want to be successful. We want to have an impact. And no one symbolizes that better than our guest of honor, Bono. Obviously a worldwide rock star, he has channeled his fame and his talents to take on some of the world's biggest challenges, to end hunger, eliminate extreme poverty, wipe out AIDS. These are all pretty audacious goals, and it must be the Irish in him, and those of you who are Irish know. Confronting these challenges, he co-founded ONE, an advocacy organization with more than 3 million members. They encourage government leaders to support debt relief and effective poverty fighting programs that are saving the lives of millions of people around the world. We're proud to announce that Bank of America will support several Georgetown interns this summer at ONE. These internships will provide an opportunity for selected students to see firsthand the power of partnership in action, to see firsthand the incredible impact this organization has. For example, thanks to ONE and all that Bono and his team have done, many things have happened around the world. More than 6 million Africans have access to life-saving AIDS medicine, up from 50,000 10 years ago. Malaria cases or deaths have been cut in half in 8 African countries. 51 million more children are going to school. RED, the initiative that Bono has also founded, works in partnership with some of the most iconic brands in the world to help raise funds. Together, they've channeled almost $200 million into Africa for AIDS prevention. Bono's commitment to improving lives have also led to a program in Ireland called Music Generation. It's a program he's proud of and we're proud of at Bank of America to help support, to put music back in the classrooms in an economy that's had difficulty supporting the culture and arts at a time when our country's gone through tough times. So Bono is clearly an example of what bringing people together and the power of partnership can achieve. So as we think about partnering with Bono, we have to live up to one of the Irish rules, which is if there are 2 Irish people, one of them can sing, and I'm the other guy. So I certainly can't partner with Bono in his studio, but I can partner with him to help make millions of people's lives better around the world. This is a responsibility we take seriously at Bank of America. It's a responsibility that Georgetown takes seriously in the Jesuit tradition that you all represent. It's a responsibility that Bono takes seriously in all he's done. Please welcome me and welcome Bono to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, thank you, Brian. A gentleman in a world where that quality is not always on tap. Very special man. We're thrilled. The band are thrilled. They wanted me to say thank you to you also, Brian, because the band have committed, as you heard, to to the idea that every school kid in Ireland will have access to free music lessons if they need them. So Brian's been helping us out with that, along with Loretta Glucksman and the American Ireland Fund. Thanks, of course, especially to President DeGioia, who has made me feel so welcome here, and to Dean Thomas of the McDonough School of Business, and to JT, right there, who's learning the chords of Sunday Bloody Sunday instead of doing his homework. That's the President's son. All right, JT. And Amu Menon, look at that. This is the spirit, and that is going to change the world. You have it in here, in this room. You can feel it. And what a room it is, by the way. Wow. I mean, U2 has played some nice halls. I don't know if this is like a lectern or a pulpit, but I feel oddly comfortable. It's a bit of a worry, isn't it? So, welcome to Pop Culture Studies 101. Please take out your notebooks. Today we're going to discuss why rock stars should never ever be given the microphone at institutions of higher learning. You will receive no credits for taking this class. Not even street cred, it's too late for that. I will, of course, be dropping the odd, cultural reference to give the impression that I know what where your generation is at. I do not. I am not sure where I am at. And the first existential question in this class might be, what am I doing in Healy Hall? I could be down having my third pint at the Tombs. Pop culture references. Rockstar does research. And I heard that election night was quite messy on the pint front. Isn't it amazing how 3 pints can make everything seem like victory, but 4 or 5 and you just know you're about to taste defeat. Anyway, congratulations are in order. Not just for for turning out in record numbers and forgetting politics for a minute, but for electing an extraordinary man as president. I think you have to say that, whatever your political tradition. But also, you are finally free from the tyranny of negative advertising from both sides. Those attack ads, could you bear any more of it by the end? Can you imagine what it would be like if we did this for everything, all the time? Attack ads about TV shows, rival smartphone companies, college admissions. Hello, we're Georgetown and we approve this message. Let me say a few words about some other fine schools you might be considering. UVA. Thomas Jefferson, what have they done to you? Syracuse, a school whose mascot is a fruit. Duke. Hold it. Duke, a school that worships the devil. Georgetown, you're in with the other guy. Georgetown has God on its side. Everyone knows God is a Catholic, right? 2 words, Frank Sinatra. That proves it. It's okay. Anyway, I've been hanging out with politicians more than I should admit, but I guess I don't really get these ads, and I don't really understand politics in that form, actually. I'd like to hear attack ads on things worth attacking. If there was an attack ad on malaria, I'd get that, because 3,000 people die every day, mostly kids, of malaria. Let's have an attack ad on malaria. Let's have an attack ad on mother-to-child transmission of HIV/AIDS. I'd get that. Choose your enemies carefully, because they define you. Make sure they're interesting enough, because trust me, you're going to spend a lot of time in their company. So let's pick a worthwhile enemy, shall we? How about all the obstacles to fulfilling human potential, not just yours or mine, but the world's potential? I would suggest to you that the biggest obstacle in the way right now is extreme poverty. Poverty so extreme it brutalizes, it vandalizes human dignity. Poverty so extreme it laughs at the concept of equality. Poverty so extreme it doubts how far we've traveled in our journey of equality. The journey that began with Wilberforce taking on slavery, and it will not end until misery and deprivation are in the stocks. Abolitionists, suffragettes, civil rights workers, and human rights activists. Social movements have always been powerful. But the subject of my speechifying tonight is going to point out what is the transformative element about this moment and this generation, and the chance that you have to rid the world of the obscenity of extreme poverty. Wouldn't that be a hell of a way to start the 21st century? Now, the history department might disagree with me, and I'll admit I only lasted a few weeks in college. But I don't believe that the 21st century started in the year 2000 on January 1. For large parts of the world, I think it started in 2011 with the upheaval of the Arab Spring. What happened in Egypt was that the pyramid, the traditional model of power, got inverted. The people at the top got upended, and the base had its say. Now, the Arab Spring is ongoing, it's messy, it's dangerous, and dangerously wrong in some geographies. But what I'm talking about is bigger than Egypt or any place else. It's a massive shift. It's one of those moments that in 100 years, the real historians, like those at Georgetown, will write about this phenomenon in the history books. The base of the pyramid, the 99%, is taking more control. The institutions that have always governed our lives, church, state, mainstream media, music industry, are being bypassed and weakened and seriously tested. People are holding them to account, us to account, demanding that they be more open, more responsive, more effective, or else. Here in the US, you've had the Tea Party hammering big government. You've had Occupy do the same to the jolly bankers of Wall Street. Social movements are competing. And we have to hope that the more enlightened ones will win the day. Social movements like the One campaign. And we're right, we're 3.2 million people at last count, asking the world to pay attention to the least amongst us, the very poorest of the world's poor, and the many things we can do to help them. And as I'll describe, we'll see things are happening in the developing world. But think about this particular moment. Not just Facebook in the heat of Tahrir Square, but the peaceful march across the world of mobile phones, across the parched lands of the Sahel and the dense rainforests of the Congo. Technology is transforming things. Everything's speeding up. Everything's opening up. Now, if I can talk about something I actually know about for a moment, this feeling reminds me a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, of the arrival of punk rock in the mid-70s. You see, the Clash were the very base of the rock and roll pyramid, and overnight gave the finger to the dreadful business, the lurgy of the time, that was at the top of the pyramid. It was called progressive rock. Epic songs, no good lyrics, no good hooks. Great reviews. Punk bands made no pretense of being better than the audience. Punk bands were the audience. If you wanted to play, great, grab a guitar, you're in the band, virtuosity was out, energy was in. The Clash were like a public service announcement with guitars. And they gave U2 the idea that social activism could make for a very musical riot. So I'd just like to point out that none of your professors, not a single one, not ever, has ever drawn or is likely to draw the connection between the Arab Spring and the Clash. Just Little intermission. Okay. Sharpen your pencils. I don't need to lecture you about change. Change is the air you breathe. You are it. I think change is your expectation. But what might it mean for you when the pyramid and a whole lot else gets turned up on its head, turns upside down on its head? What a huge opportunity that affords you if you're willing to seize it, because there's not just one big lever of power anymore. There's millions of levers or levers, and you've got a lot of them in your hands. And when we press them together at the same time, that's when things really start happening. But first, let me hit the brakes before some of you do, and let's acknowledge that it's brutal out there. It's brutal out there. And by there, I mean here, right here in America. The economy is still in a rough shape, and that slashing sound you hear is a big pair of scissors bearing down on the federal budget. Defense cuts, safety net cuts, foreign aid cuts, and all these cuts coming if we drive over this fiscal cliff, so-called. And cuts, they hurt. Somebody bleeds. The aid cut alone would mean that nearly 275,000 people won't get the AIDS treatment they need, resulting in over 60,000 deaths. 250,000 more children become AIDS orphans. Real people, real bleeding. So that's why you'll hear us in the one campaign making the case that cuts shouldn't cost lives. Cuts can't cost the lives of the poorest of the poor. It shouldn't be a hard case to make, but it is right now. In the halls of Congress, in the Senate, maybe even here in Healy Hall. But I put it to you, we must not let this economic recession become a moral recession. That would be double cruelty. You know, it doesn't just take away your chances here at home, this recession, but it might therefore take away your generation's shot at greatness in the wider world. The generation before you outlawed the idea that the color of your skin decided whether you could vote. It challenged the idea that your sex could decide your future. Well, this generation has the chance to challenge the absurdity of where you live deciding whether you live. The most vivid example of this for me was a clinic in Kigali, in Rwanda, in 2003. Long queues of far too skinny men and women. Long queues of men and women who were courageous enough to take a HIV test. The nurses knowing that a diagnosis was a death sentence, as there were no antiretroviral drugs in that clinic or any other clinic in Rwanda for that matter. Looking into the eyes of hopelessness, I was surprised to find no anger, no rage, just a strange acquiescence. Not so the nurses. The nurses who knew that this wasn't a killer disease in Europe or America, they had a very different look in their eyes. Fast forward 5 years, same clinic, whole different scenario. Nurses beaming with job satisfaction. These death camps had become birth camps, maternal clinics, what they were supposed to be in the first place. Not just in a city, but a whole country who understood the United States had deep respect for their lives. And this was not the old paternalism, this was partnership. Because without it, partnership that is, without that partnership, Rwanda would not have managed to get life-saving AIDS drugs to 91% it is of the people who need them. Good leadership, as it happens. We've problems in Rwanda with the leadership there, on other fronts, but on this, they got the AIDS drugs to the people, provided by the United States. It's a moving story, and we are moved by such moving events. I'm probably here because of such events. But I tell you this, in the One campaign, ours is not a soft focal lens. We try to keep our ardor cold. Welcome the evidence-based activist. Can you believe that? The dryness of that term. I'm proud of the dryness of it. Evidence-based activist. Yours truly. And I'm here to tell you that your heart is not the most important thing. It helps, but your heart is not going to solve these problems. If your heart hasn't found a rhyme with your head, we're not going to get anywhere. It's not charity that fires us at the One campaign or at Red. It's justice. That's what inflames us. And justice is a higher, tougher standard. This is hard work. I'm not going to soft pedal it. We have meetings sometimes about marketing. Marketing. People are looking for clear, simple melody lines, you know? Just $1 and you can save a life. Just a minute of your time. Just an hour of your week. It's bollocks. It's not true. It's crap. In truth, if you want to turn the world right side up, it's not going to take a minute or an hour or a day. It's going to take your whole life. And I'm going to make a bid for that this evening to you. So that was the brakes. Now for the gas. And for me, where it all started. It all starts where humanity started. And where our humanity is needed now. It's Africa. I mean, you should ask a very good question. Why would you be listening to me talking about Africa? Desmond Tutu's much funnier. But he's much busier. But this Africa has been an extraordinary adventure for me and privilege. Africa, wild, magnificent, magical, sometimes maddening Africa. But it is extraordinary. I realized the other day that I have been working for Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu for most of my life. I think since I was 18, from anti-apartheid to through Drop the Debt, from the fight against hunger to the fight for human rights. Human rights. Right to live like a human. Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Tutu, there's no point in even trying to turn them down, by the way. Particularly Tutu, because he calls in the big guns. On the rare occasion that I have tried to turn him down, he has told me that he will personally see to it that I won't get into heaven. And I think he might have that kind of pull. But even if it weren't for them, I think I'd have felt the pull to Africa because Ireland, maybe, got some Irish friends there, Brent and Andrea. Maybe our Irish ambassador there, very cool. Ireland has a very living memory of famine and coming out from under colonialization, or maybe it's just because Africa's the future and edges from the future. Sorry. Well, we're all interested in the future and, what the world will look like, for the kids. People say China is the future. But if you ask the Chinese, they're all headed to Africa. The largest diaspora of recent times is from China to Africa. By 2050, Africa's population is going to be twice the size of China's. Africa's going to be big and it's going to be young. 60% of Africans right now are under 25. Can you imagine that? All across the continent, people are writing new rules for the game. African entrepreneurs, African civil society, a whole new generation of politicians. They're the catalysts of change, and you can see the impact in so many ways. For example, 14 of the poorest countries, which didn't benefit from the last decade's commodity boom, but did get 100% debt cancellation and a threefold increase in aid, achieved the following. Extreme poverty on track to be halved by 2015. Child mortality nearly halved already. School enrollment doubled. and economic growth 5.5% on average for a decade. You want data? I got data. We used to talk about Asian tigers, and actually for a minute we were talking about a Celtic one, which was nice. While it lasted. But this is not an African tiger, this is a lion. This is a pride of lions. And lots of them are roaring. Some of them are not. Some of them are in a bad mood, injured, licking their wounds. And we all know a wounded lion is a dangerous thing. Take Mali. Ethnomusicologists trace the origin of the blues, and therefore rock and roll, to Mali in West Africa. And I was just there in January at the renowned music festival in the desert, Festival de la Desert, in the dunes outside of Timbuktu. And it's amazing, by the way, really awesome. A month after we left, Al-Qaeda, known regionally as Ansar Dine, they took over the whole north of Mali. The north of Mali is about the size of France. And now the hotel that we stayed in, small little hotel, is a Sharia tribunal. And music is now against the law. I mean, they put you into prison for playing music. You get beaten for playing the blues. You get beaten to death on occasion for playing the blues. And Mali is a case study for the whole of that vast belt of sand and savanna called the Sahel, which includes Sudan and Somalia and Nigeria, which is an enormous country. And in this geography, we get to see up close what we call the three extremes. It's an unholy trio of extreme poverty, extreme climate, and extreme ideology. Very dangerous, unholy trio. Stronger than any chain and harder to break. So some of Africa is rising and some of Africa is stuck. The question is whether the rising bit will pull the rest of Africa up or whether the other Africa will weigh the continent down. Which will it be? Stakes here aren't just about them. Imagine for a second this last global recession, but without the economic growth of China and India, without the hundreds of millions of newly minted middle-class folks who now buy American and European goods. Imagine that. Think about the last 5 years. Rockstar preaches capitalism. Wow. Sometimes I hear myself and I just can't believe it. But commerce is real. That's what you're about here. It's real. Aid is just a stopgap. Commerce, entrepreneurial capitalism takes more people out of poverty than aid. Of course, we know that. We need Africa to become an economic powerhouse. It's not just in their interest, it's in ours. It's in our national security interest too, your national security interests in particular. We want to see the region fulfill its potential. So cue up the drum roll. You can if you like. Enter our protagonist. Enter the most powerful force for change on the continent. Enter the strongest, loudest, clearest voice for progress. Enter the nerd. Yes. Yes. I did say the nerd. I did say the nerd because it is the nerds, the innovators, the programmers who are changing the game, not only here in America, but even more in places like Africa, which are more mobile than we are. Africa is the second largest mobile market after Asia. This is the era of the Afro nerd. And what are these Afro nerds up to? You know what they're up to? They're upending the pyramid. You know about social media and the role it played in the Arab Spring. I recently met Wael Ghonin. I'm sure you know him. He worked in Google, and he set up one of the Facebook groups behind the Tahrir Square thing, got thrown in jail for it. And I was at the Founders Conference in Dublin, and he was explaining the role of technology and how it has narrowed the gap between the power of the politicians and the power of individuals. You see, according to Wael, technology has turbocharged social movements. And this is this element I'm telling you about that defines your generation. And it works on lots of surfaces. For example, it is definitely true that the biggest killer of them all, bigger than malaria, bigger than AIDS, bigger than TB, probably bigger than all three combined, the disease that kills the most people in the world, and the world's poor, is corruption. But we have the vaccine. We have the vaccine. It's called transparency. It's called daylight, sunlight, information. Technology is increasing transparency, you see? Now, there might be some downsides to this, like the fact that I'm on my holidays with my kids and my wife, and a picture of my sunburned arse turns up on the cover of a tabloid. That is true. I think bottoms up was the headline. Should have been rock bottom. That's what I would have chosen. But the upside is that if someone's up to no good in business or government, it's getting harder and harder for them to hide it. And this is true north as well as south of the equator. Isn't it extraordinary that the two parties who are the most important in the transaction that we call development assistance, i.e. aid, the two most important parties, the taxpayer who give the money and the people who benefit from the money, are the two people who know the least about it, or the two parties who know the least about it. That's mad. I know Raj thinks that, and it's going to change. Biggest argument we always hear against development assistance, aid, which remember is a tiny fraction of the federal budget, less than 1%, is that it's efficient. A bureaucracy gets in the way, and kleptocrats run off with it. But now everyone can see what's happening. The trajectory of information technology is, strangely enough, more information. African citizens are holding their governments and companies to account. In Uganda, they're monitoring elections with mobile phones and cameras. In Kenya, they're using websites like iPaidAbribe.ke. No kidding. To expose officials who are on the take. East Africa, there's an initiative citizens started called Twaweza, which literally means yes we can in Swahili. Who knew? Anyway, they're opening the books on government spending. They want to see. Transparency is driving down pharmaceutical prices. It's even starting to transform the extractive industries. Some people here know what I'm talking about. Oil and mining. This is big because there's a lot of wealth in natural resources down under the ground in these developing countries. And this open data can help get that wealth above ground to benefit the people who live over it. Anyway, all of this I'm describing as a start. I'm not even mentioning banking by phone or pricing information for farmers, but here's the catch, and it's an obvious one. Technology doesn't accomplish this on its own. You can't just drop a cell phone in the desert and create an oasis. There's no app for that yet. The crucial element is still the human element. It's individual citizens, numbering in the millions, and determined to stir things up. It's the human element that got us to a moment where an extra 50 million African children are going to school today because people in America and other countries got out and marched for debt cancellation. Same goes for the 6.2 million Africans now getting life-saving AIDS drugs because people in the US were willing to stand up and shout and pay for that. Those and other victories took not phones in the hand, but boots on the ground. The boots of everyday activists in every town and city and on college campuses like Georgetown. That's really what moves the dial. Social movement, social enterprise. Because when people get busy and get organized, get out there, real change happens, global change. It's a simple equation. Outside pressure, inside movement. It's a story of one. We're a social enterprise, like Red. The idea, Red is like the gateway drug to one. If you haven't the time to put on the marching boots and just go buy some Red shit. Deborah Duggan's here somewhere, she rocks, runs the show. But you know, the idea that there's a movement out there when myself or Bill Gates is going in to lobby a president or prime minister to try and get them to keep their commitments to the poorest of the poor, that politician is hearing it from thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who agree with us. And it's harder to ignore them than it is to ignore me, as persuasive as I like to think I am. Ask the congressman who thought it would look good on him. He shall remain nameless. Picking a fight with one, he tried to block an important bill and said on the radio he didn't think his constituents thought it important. He's bombarded by emails and petitions, and then, really dirty trick, they were waiting for him when he came out of his church on Sunday. He threw his hands up in the air. I had no idea you people felt so strongly. I'm so sorry. I now support the bill. That's what we do. And then, of course, there's the politicians that you don't have to lobby. I just want to stand up and I want to make a major shout out for Leader Nancy Pelosi and Senators Pat Leahy and Norm Coleman. Where's Norm Coleman? All of whom, not just great leadership, real deep personal commitment. And we shouldn't just thank them, we should shout their names across the land. And I actually, I can't even consider the number of lives that have been transformed and saved by these people. And it must be millions. And people are alive because these people exist. Gene Sperling is here tonight. Raj Shah is here tonight. These people are heroes to me. This is civic duty with the global citizen in mind. And actually, you know, if George Bush was here, and I know his daughter Barbara's here, I would get Matt Damon to kiss him on the lips. And I would give him a more sort of Irish, macho kind of handshake thing. And, you know, it's incredible. It's incredible what you know, President Bush's name is in the history books. His name is in the front forward of a book that's written on the end of AIDS. Greatest health crisis in 600 years. Both sides working. If Bill Clinton was here at his alma mater, well, I just get him to make the speech, actually. I just get, you know, the secretary of explaining stuff, because he is just more of a rock star than I'll ever be. I just want to thank Bono here. I want to thank Bono here. I want to thank Bono for stepping away from the microphone. I knew he couldn't rhyme, but I'm so glad he can fall back on adding and subtracting. As you know, I mean, the one campaign, it might be the one thing all of us can agree on. Dude. And all of this happens without social media. Can you imagine what you can accomplish, turbocharged? The power of these tools, the power of technology is that leverage that they give us, if we're willing to use it. I think we are. I know we are. I know you are. Whether you join one or buy Red or join an NGO that we work alongside, we need you engaged in this fight. It's the defining struggle of our age, and it's not just aid, which is getting smarter and smarter. It's trade, it's investment, social enterprise. It's working with the citizenry to help unlock their own domestic resources so they can do it for themselves. Think anyone in Africa likes aid? Come on. Think anyone in Ireland likes aid? Germany, rebuilt after the Second World War. You'll take it, though. Anyway, it's not a right-left issue. It's a right-wrong issue. And America has constantly been on the side of what's right. Because when it comes down to it, this is about keeping faith with the idea of America. Because America's an idea, isn't it? I mean, Ireland's a great country, but it's not an idea. Great Britain's a great country. It's not an idea. That's how we see you around the world, as one of the greatest ideas in human history, right up there with the Renaissance, right up there with crop rotation and the Beatles' White Album. The idea, the American idea, it's an idea. The idea is that you and me are created equal. It will ensure that an economic recession need not become an equality recession. The idea that life is not meant to be endured but enjoyed. The idea that if we have dignity, if we have justice, then leave it to us, we'll do the rest. This country was the first to claw its way out of darkness and put that on paper. And God love you for it, because these aren't just American ideas anymore. There's no copyright on them. You brought them into the world. It's a wide world now. I know Americans say they have a bit of the world in them, and you do. The family tree has lots of branches. But the thing is, the world has a bit of America in it too. These truths, your truths, they're self-evident in us. So those people I've been talking about today, the poor, they're not those people. They're not them. They're us. They're you. They may be separated from, oceans and circumstance, but as they dream as you dream, they value what you value. There is no them, only us. The American anthem is not exceptionalism, it's universalism. There is no them, only us. Ubuntu, I am because we are. There is no them, only us. Now the Jesuits, they know something about this. The largeness of spirit, this expanded sense, enlightened sense of who is your neighbor. I'm not a Jesuit. My mother was a Protestant and my father a Catholic. He was not of the Jesuit order. He was of a whole other order. But here's what I know. I love him, I miss him. But here's what I know about the Jesuits and Ignatius Loyola. He was a soldier, right? And he was lying on a bed, recovering from his wounds, when he had what they call a conversion of the heart. He saw God's work and the call to do God's work, not just in the church, in everything, everywhere. The arts, universities, the Orient, the New World. And once he knew about that, he couldn't unknow it. It changed him. It forced him out of bed and into the world. And that's what I'm hoping happens here in Georgetown with you, because when you truly accept that those children in some far-off place in the global village have the same value as you, in God's eyes, or even just in your eyes, then your life is forever changed. You see something that you can't unsee. We have a sense of it from the words of Wael Gonan. I have his words tattooed on my brain. The man who stood in Tahrir Square at the start of the 21st century. We are going to win because we don't understand politics. We are going to win because we don't play their dirty games. We're going to win because we don't have a party political agenda. We're going to win because the tears that come from our eyes actually come from our hearts. We're going to win because we have dreams. We're going to win because we are willing to stand up for our dreams. We're going to win because the power of the people is so much stronger than the people in power. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Any quick questions? Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. That kissing George Bush on the lips is going to get me fired. My band, that is.
So Bono has agreed to take a few questions. So I'd ask that anyone with questions come to the mic in the center aisle. Please try to hold yourself to one question so that we can get in as many as possible in just in a few minutes. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Sure.
How are you? My name's Peter Hahn. I'm a member of the McDonough School class of 1999 and the MBA class of 2010. On behalf of the alumni, thanks for coming to our beloved Hilltop this evening. Before I ask my question, I better warn you, I used to stand on that stage and sing your songs when I was a group called the Phantoms here. So tonight I'll stick to the question. I work at an organization that cares a lot about the same issues that you do, called United Way, and works with a lot of companies like Bank of America and companies that are part of RED. And a lot of times it feels like it's a lot of the same people and companies at the table, like we're preaching to the choir. So my question for you is, what advice do you have for all of us to bring new people into the work, and where should we go to find them? Thanks.
I was a big fan of the Phantoms. Your first two albums were great, and then you sold out. But as regards the companies that works for, let me talk about RED, because RED's, I think we're going to announce it'll be at 200 million by this World AIDS Day, which is incredible. But our whole thing with RED, getting RED partners, was it had to work for them, And if you take two companies, car companies or drinks companies, we think that if one becomes RED and the other doesn't, people will choose the RED one. So we've just signed up Coca-Cola, and I said to Muhtar Kent, who's a man I admire, I said to him, that ad used to have Coke adds life? Now you can say Coke save lives. And if that works and they see a bump, they're going to keep going RED. And I'm sure what it is with Brian, I don't want to answer for him, and Bank of America, it's about values as well as value. And I think that this generation is very smart about their choices, and they know that they can play with the stock market just by what company they support by buying their stuff. And that's powerful. We call it conscious consumerism. It's just if you're greedy, if you're just a company that's just on those attack ads, well, we'll buy somewhere else. And I think that's it. It's got to work. Okay.
Thank you so much for coming to speak with us tonight. My name is Mary Beth Brosnahan. I'm a senior in the School of Foreign Service here at Georgetown. My sister Claire is currently serving in the Peace Corps in southwestern Rwanda and living with 3 nuns. To say that you're her biggest fan is so much of an underestimate and an understatement. Yeah. But in the first week she was serving in southwestern Rwanda, the nuns that she was living with and her found this 3-year-old orphan left in a bush with AIDS, and she's been taking care of him for the last 3 months. So I was just wondering what words you would speak to either this 3-year-old boy named Francois or my sister, either in words of encouragement, or what would you say to Francois about his future?
Oh, well, thanks to the United States and leadership in this room and in Britain, I have to say, in a time of great austerity, David Cameron and the Conservative government in coalition with the Liberal Democrats are increasing their aid budget. It's amazing. And so I would say the future for Francois in jeopardy, depending on if we can get more countries to follow the lead of the United States, and I just mentioned Britain, because it's not just enough to save that child's life. You want to make sure that child has an education. Girls' education is just the most, it's a coarse term, but that's the greatest sort of return on investment, is girls' education. Women transform the landscape of poverty quicker than men. And so it's not just a single bullet, it's not just, global health, it's agriculture, making sure farmers can deal with difficult climatic conditions. You've seen what happened in around the world this year with the weather. It's terrifying if you live in Bangladesh, not just in New York. It's complicated. But I do think if you want it to happen, and I speak to your generation, across the world, then Francois is going to have a great future. An entrepreneur on every street in Rwanda. And I remember in Ethiopia, Meles Zenawi, the president, is dead now. He's passed away. He said to me, the farmers, he said, are the smartest people in our country. And I said, why is that? He said, because if they weren't, they'd be dead. Like the innovation and the smarts that it has taken Africans to survive difficult conditions means that in the marketplace, they are so sharp, so hard. I feel an affinity with the Irish right there. If you've known struggle, you get good at survival. Thank you.
Hello, Bono. My name is Diego Gonzalez-Bunster. I just want to congratulate you for giving one of the greatest motivational speeches I've heard ever.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I was also told to tell you that Ben Sherwin says hello. But my question is, how do you think we can promote investment as opposed to aid as a tool to try to promote economic growth and political change in Africa?
Oh, it's happening. I mean, this is one of the things maybe I could have spent longer on it, but that was pretty long. And Fidel Castro School of Speech Making. It's the key. It really is the key. Is investment. And one of the things we're very pleased with it's called the Millennium Challenge account, and it's quite an innovative attitude to aid, linking it with the fight against corruption and linking it with kind of business-minded approaches to aid, and therefore leveraging aid to create the environment for investment. The corruption piece is amazing. Let me tell you, and Pat Leahy knows a lot about this, but in the Dodd-Frank bill, there's an amendment called Carden-Lugar, and it makes it law that any extractive industry, mining, oil, gas, registered on the New York Stock Exchange, it is law that they have to publish what they paid for those mining rights. Sounds obvious, doesn't it? The truth of it is that right now, the American Petroleum Institute is suing the SEC to try and overthrow that. That is astonishing. And I know people in oil companies who are amazing people, and it's very important, your energy here, and shouldn't be, and it's not, in this case, a political issue. Europe and America, Europe's going to follow this lead, are going to make this outlandish opacity, and if that word doesn't exist, I'd like to suggest it to the committee of the Oxford Dictionary. But the opaque nature of these deals is corruption north of the equator, because when you publish what you pay, then the civil societies in those regions get to hold their governments to account. That's one of the best things you could do to stimulate business and investment. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sonia Kakari. I'm a senior in the SFS as well, studying international development. So this is really close to my heart, and I'm a terrible public speaker, so I wrote down my question. How do we develop the global citizen, the perspective and the mindset? How do we incentivize people concerned with national debt to further prioritize life outside the US and the West?
How do we preserve? Sorry, I missed that.
Oh, the whole question?
I mean, it sounded good. It sounded good.
How do we develop the global citizen, basically, in the mindset of like the 1%er people?
You know, there's an amazing website. You should go to it. Global Citizen, GPP. They're an amazing group. They just put on a concert in Central Park. And they asked U2 to play. We couldn't. They said, no problem. We've got Neil Young, the Black Keys, Kanan, Jack White was like, what? But they're really pushing this idea, and it's a jump in human consciousness, and I think go onto that website. I recommend it. They did a great job.
Good evening, Bono. My name is Vivian. I'm originally from Namibia, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming here today and speaking to us so candidly about Africa. And I was like waving and everything, so excited to hear about my continent and what's going on. My question is mainly just thinking about the continent and thinking about the diversity that exists in Africa, and how there seems to be this Adichie single story idea of what's going on in Africa and one view of it. And I guess this is more of a personal question, but I'm sort of asking, what kind of advice do you have for young Africans like myself who have just access to a world of knowledge and opportunities and want to be able to take that back without being condescending or without thinking that I know necessarily more just because I've gone to Georgetown, and just really sort of thinking about how we can ease back into the African experience and assist people without being condescending, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense, and I look forward to meeting you when you are president of Namibia, which you clearly are going to be. Condescending be the key word, not to condescend. It's very hard. Partly what we do is raise the alarm, and we have to. When there is deep injustice and crippling poverty, we have to raise the alarm because we have to raise the funds. So people have to go and put the fires out. But we've got to be very careful about how we frame it, because Africa is a continent, as you point out. It's not it's not a country, and it's so many countries. And I was trying to say this tonight. There's these roaring successes, and then there's these kind of terribly frustrating, awful, intractable conflicts. And it's not even like there's two Africas. It's like there's 51. It's really, I find it quite difficult, because when you meet really smart, entrepreneurial Africans, Oswald Boateng, I really admire him as a fashion designer, it's unbelievable. He talks to me about this. You just got to be careful, because it's just very easy to caricature, and this is complex. So I, and not wanting to condescend you, will say we don't quite have the answer. And honestly, I look forward to the day when what's your name again?
Vivian.
Vivian will be holding this speech, because I see the absurdity of Paddy standing at a lectern talking because Desmond Tutu's busy. And I serve you. And as I was called to serve you by first Mandela and then Tutu, and I think we're all called to serve each other in that sense by God, or a sense of common decency. Africa, of course, is a continent we pick on, because the real issue that we're fighting with is extreme poverty, and it just so happens that a lot of it's there. And I suppose the wealth of the continent is such a stark contrast. But I'm absolutely sure you are ramping up, And as regards your own role, I really don't think you need any advice from me. Really.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to ask that everyone keep their seats until the members of the stage party have left, as well as the distinguished guests here. And the lecture fund ushers will release each role. So this is for safety and security reasons.
Could I just say one last thing before we go? My favorite singers here, Andrea Corr, sitting right there, with her husband, Brett.
Bono, thank you.
Thank you.